Welcome to the Tony Talks Wealth Podcast. This show is dedicated to helping you manage your money better, invest wisely, retire early, and grow your wealth for you and your family and live your best life. My name is Tony Thomas, Chartered Financial Planner, Pension Specialist, and Money Coach. I've advised thousands of people over the last 30 years. I'm going to share with you real life stories and everything that you need to know to build a financially secure future and a great lifestyle. If you enjoy the podcast, then feel free to subscribe and leave a review. Now let's dive into today's episode on the Tony Talks Wealth Podcast. I'm really pleased to be joined by Fanny Snaith in today's show. So a massive welcome to you, Fanny, and thank you for joining me.
It's a pleasure. I'm really happy that you've asked me.
Fanny is a certified money coach and committed to helping people better understand the meaning and purpose of money. So Fanny, please share with us your fascinating story and how you help others through your money coaching service.
Okay, well, I decided to become a money coach about 5 years ago now. And what happened was I had my midlife crisis, I guess. Had my 50th birthday. And I was in a job that I'd been doing for 13 years, which was okay. And it served me really, really well when I was bringing up the children because I was able to work from home. I've been working from home for the last 20 years. And I just got to a point where I thought I need to do something different in my life. And I thought, well, what shall I do? And I actually went and spoke to a career coach called Louise Jenner. And she said, well, what are you interested in? And I said, well, I've always been interested in money. And she said, well, why don't you become a money coach? I was going, what's one of those? Anyway, I went away on holiday and read a couple of books, and it was at that point then that I started to realise that my whole life came in front of me when I suddenly thought, do you know what? Money has been a running theme throughout the whole of my life, which is weird. So the backstory is that my mum was married and divorced 3 times by the time I was 12, and each one of those marriages was based on money. And my mum came from a very wealthy family, and she inherited a lot of money. Yep. My dad came from more humble beginnings, and when she inherited that money, they just couldn't get on. There was a mismatch. Yeah. Because he was one of these people that we used to give him the name. His middle name was Perfectly Adequate, because he'd be the sort of person that would have holes in his trousers, a couple of knots in his shoelaces, etc. You know, don't get me wrong, he earned good money, but everything was like, well, it's perfectly adequate. So he used to write everything down, and mum was a spender. So anyway, so that didn't work. Then she moved on to her second husband, and I'm not going to go into detail, but he wasn't a very nice guy, and it wasn't a great atmosphere in the house. So she decided to pack my sister and I off to boarding school. She'd gone to boarding school when she was 7, I was 7, and she thought that the best idea would be to pack us off to boarding school. So we went there. And the interesting part of it is we left our very beautiful house on the Isle of Wight, which is where we lived. And the minute that we walked, we crossed the threshold of the boarding school, we became the paupers, because the people there were really proper rich. Yeah. Like I had a Gucci in my dormitory, and Sarah Ferguson was my head girl, and all that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So we spent 3 years there as the paupers, really. And then mum got rid of that husband whilst we were at boarding school and ended up marrying her bank manager. And she said, darlings, everything's going to be fine. I'm marrying the bank manager, so we won't have to worry about money, because even though she had a lot of money, it was going down quite a lot. She liked to spend. She said everything will be okay. So that was fine. Unfortunately, though, a year into the marriage, he fell foul to blackmail, and he basically gave away all of our money and all of his mother's money to an East End gangster, and we were left with 76 quid. So overnight we came, and obviously the marriage failed, and he had a nervous breakdown. Mum was left with sort of his 3 kids and me and my 2 sisters. And it was just all a bit of a disaster, really. So came out of boarding school very swiftly. I skipped a year of school rather than going into primary school. I went straight to the secondary school. So I was young, got to secondary school and thought, this is awful. Joined the free school meals queue. So you can imagine just the change of everything.
Yeah.
Moved to Damp Cottage. Don't get me wrong, I was really grateful, but it was so different from what we'd had before. Went to the comprehensive school, joined the free school meals queue, and they put us on separate sides of the room then. They had the paid people on that side and the free school meals people on that side.
I had the same conversation with somebody recently, and we were exactly the same. My story isn't much different to yours in as much as that. My mum divorced twice and married a third time, and every time, shall we say, come to an end mostly down to money.
Right.
And yes, we, as children, I've got a brother and sister, we had to have free school meals. And the way we had it, similar to yours, we had to queue up for our free meal tickets on a Monday morning in school. And then we had to wait in a queue until everybody else had been served.
Yeah. I don't think they did that with us.
Yeah.
But it was a bit weird. It was just horrible, because the thing is that we joined there. Nobody knew who we were. Well, nobody knew who I was because I hadn't been to primary school. Yeah. And everybody sort of heard that we come from boarding school. Yeah. So they'd look at us like we were the rich kids.
Yeah.
But we didn't have a bean.
Yeah.
We didn't have any. Anyway, I remember standing in that free school meals queue.
Yeah.
I was taller than anybody else in what we called the first year then. Okay. It's year 7 now, but we had a first year. And I remember standing there in the anger and the frustration and just the sadness, all kinds of emotions. And I remember vowing to myself that day that I would never be beholden to anybody for money ever again. Yeah. And that I would become a millionaire.
Isn't it strange where that type of event, shall we say, or experience in our very young years has such a dramatic impact on our future outlook on life and what we do further down the line?
Well, yeah. So, that absolutely, totally. And we'll probably talk about this in a minute, but the ages between 0, or actually even before you're born, to about 7. Yeah. Are the years where your financial blueprint is, and actually your blueprint for life is formed pretty much. And we just take everything that's said to us when we're very young. We take it as the truth, and why wouldn't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Our parents are our role models. We see what we see on the television. We listen to what teachers tell us, and we listen to all those languages and all those messages, and they become true.
Yeah.
So anyway, my journey continued. And I became, I think, if I was to use the Money Coaching Institute's terminology, I became a warrior tyrant with my money. So I became very action driven, very like, I'm going to save 10% of everything that I earn. I'm going to be putting money away. I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be managing it. And I started very, very young. I had some ups and downs. But I started, literally looking after my money very respectfully, which of course, I suppose I would. And I have my stepfather and my mum to thank for that, because actually that prompted me to move in that direction. But I also started, I guess, hoarding money. I became a bit secretive about it, a bit controlling, a bit manipulative, etc. And married a man who had absolutely no interest in money whatsoever, which of course, that was what I was going to do, because I was never going to be beholden to anybody else. Yeah. So I was only going to be the one holding the reins. There's part of the tyranny there. And then when we finally managed to get to the 7th digit of the net worth, for whatever that means, I remember saying to Neil, I said to him, Neil, we've done it. And it's like, that seems to be my goal. Got to get to the 7th digit on the net worth. That was all I cared about. I said, Neil, we've done it. And he looked at me and he said, well, it hasn't got anything to do with me, has it? And I was like, oh my God. And there were no flags, no bells, no whistles, nothing, absolutely nothing happened. And it meant nothing. And it was almost like I was adrift then. because I didn't know what to do next. I'd had this goal and it was going to change everything for me, and nothing happened.
How old were you at this stage?
It was about, that particular time was probably about, I think it was about 2013, 2014.
Okay.
So it was all leading up to this. And actually, my husband and I at that time realised that our relationship, or I didn't realise that, I didn't call it our relationship with money, because I didn't even know that we had a relationship with money, really. Hadn't been introduced to that terminology. But I suddenly realised that our marriage wasn't all it was cracked up to be. It was a bit, not dodgy, but it certainly wasn't, there weren't hearts and flowers, really.
Right.
And then coming up to my 50th birthday as well, everything started to sort of go on. And then somebody said, be a money coach. I believed then that being a money coach was just sitting people down in front of spreadsheets, right? I'd invented this thing called a money map, which was an all singing, all dancing spreadsheet that was able to house the whole of your financial life.
Yeah.
And I just said, well, all I've got to do is just give that to people and teach them how to do it. And that's what I did. But what happened was they either cried or they just missed it over. And it then struck me that actually these people were clever, and had they have wanted to manage their money or thought that they were able to do so, they would have just done it on their own accord.
Yeah.
So coming to see me, they wanted more than just a maths lesson, basically, or just a financial literacy lesson.
Yeah.
And it was then that I started looking at the psychology of money and thinking about, well, what is it? What's the matter with these people? Why aren't they able to do it? So I then came across the Money Coaching Institute and Deborah Price, signed up for the money coaching. I've been doing quite a lot of other spiritual work at the same time, but I hadn't sort of put the two things together. So I was learning a therapy called block clearance therapy and studying numerology at the same time, and doing things with auras and energies and crystals and all that kind of stuff. But I hadn't really joined the dots.
Well, you must have been an early adopter, because as far as I'm aware, money coaching in the UK certainly was even known at that stage. I don't think it was. Well, or very little anyway.
Yeah, very, very, very little. Yeah, I mean, of money coaches from the Money Coaching Institute, I think I was probably about the fourth.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
There's another lady. There's Simone Ganessen, who's
I know.
a wise monkey, and so she's been going for a long time. And it was a choice, really. Do I do that one or do I do this one? But I just love the spirit. I got I knew how to do practical money management. I didn't need to learn that. And I was a savvy investor. I was invested in property, etc. So I wanted to know what was going on in the brain, and that was Deborah's bit. Really, that was the bit that drew me to that. And I have to say though, when I started working with Deborah, because you have to be coached yourself, so you can't do it unless you've been through the process, I suddenly realized what a terrible relationship with money I had, and what a terrible relationship with money both of us had as a couple. So not only was I trying to learn how to be a money coach, but I was also having the whole of all my emotions and feelings around money picked about, and had to spread them all out over the table and try and sort them out. And so it really was quite a difficult time. But coming through that, and actually having been through that myself, I think that's probably made me a better coach to a certain extent.
Well, I think when you do anything yourself, you understand the process much better, and certainly you understand what other people are going through, and probably, as you say, with regards to better, if should we say, a relationship with money, it is not about the numbers. The numbers are nothing to do with it. It's that emotional relationship that people have, and it can be obviously positive or negative. And I guess for many people, they have negative relationships, and this is why they need to get them through that.
I think if I put my hand on my heart here and I mirror what Deborah says, and I don't think there's really any of us that doesn't have some kind of unresolved money issue somewhere.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And obviously for some of us, money is a lot easier to deal with than for others. But it shows itself in so many ways. money.
I think it touches all aspects of our lives as well. It's not, it's if you don't have a good relationship or you don't have sufficient finances to be able to either feel secure or enjoy life, it can be quite destructive.
It's really interesting, actually, because I've been doing a series called Lunchtime on LinkedIn, which have been these live sessions, and I was talking to a chap the other day he's very, very grounded with money.
Okay.
He's very, I would say that he was a perfect, from what I know of him, a real warrior magician, which is the best money types that we can be. I'll talk about money types in a minute, I've always called money, pound coins, my foot soldiers.
Okay, good.
Yeah, well, it's interesting actually, because I've called them my foot soldiers because they're sort of thought, right, so you have one foot soldier, which is great, but when you've got 10, you can call that a little army, and then when you've got a bit more, you can call it a battalion, just because it's an army of people there to help you and protect you. He came on, and he, without any kind of prompting from me, he said, I've always called my money my employees. Okay. Which I thought was really interesting. His view is they're my employees, I'm the boss, and they work hard for me.
Yeah.
Mine is get as many of them as you can because they protect me. So that's based in fear, right?
Yeah. I would put a football analogy on that. Is it's like having a defense and an attack. I don't know if that's right, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind. But you see, both are very good analogies, aren't they?
Yeah, it's interesting though. But if you say defense and attack, there's that kind of aggression with it.
Yeah.
I would want to steer clear of that if I'm putting my money coaching hat on, because money's an energy, right, which flows in and out of our lives, and we want it to flow through with the least resistance and as positively as possible. Yeah. So when he says money, I treat them like employees, I love that, because it's like a well-oiled company, right? Yeah. And what do good companies do? They solve people's problems.
They do. And what's your best assets? Your employees.
Exactly. So it was a real surprise to me, actually, because it was just really enlightening. And I do know that I still, none of us are perfect. I'm a money coach, right? Yeah, great. But I still have my own issues. But it's about being conscious of them and being aware of them, and actually then trying to move past them on a daily basis. Because you can't just fix something that's been ingrained in you for 40 odd years, You don't just change it overnight. You have to keep practicing and keep practicing.
But you're in a position where you recognize, don't you? You recognize the sort of blockers that's in your way, and you know how to fix them. So that in itself must be quite powerful, knowing that you can do that.
Yeah, it's like last night, my husband and I, we were looking at a little property that we were thinking of buying. And, it's become available. It should be a pretty good deal. And, he looks at it now that we can talk perfectly openly about money, which is brilliant, by the way. We were looking at this, and I could very openly sense my approach to it was really cautious. His approach to it was like a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? So he was adventurous.
Adventurous, okay.
Adventurous. So we have to try and balance those two bits, right? The two sides. And that's what it's all about. And that's what a partnership, when it comes to money, is all about. It's not only just a partnership of you and your partner and money, but it's about your partnership with money.
Yeah.
And how you're going to get on with it, treat it, respect it, love it, use it, allow it to flow, resist it, hate it. It's all of those things that you need.
Surely it all comes back as well. So whatever you, if you like, put out with money, you're going to get that back. I would have thought so.
Yeah, and that's a really tough thing, because sometimes it's not that easy to control. It takes work.
Yeah.
When I'm working with people one-to-one, and I think about the money types that we use at the
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I did you a quiz. I'm trying to think what I came out as.
Oh, you should have told me, because I would have got the results out before. We could have talked about it on here.
But for another time, shall we say?
Well, shall I tell your listeners a little bit about them?
Yes, please. Because I've seen them and I'm fascinated by them. And I think, as you know, I did look into this a number of years ago, and I was at the crossroads. And for a twist of fate, shall we say, I probably would be doing the money coaching now. However, what I saw from the coaching that you are able to do, like you, I'm always fascinated what goes on in people's heads.
Yeah.
What makes them tick, etc. And I think what I've seen, because I did quite a lot of research in terms of the different money coaching options out there, and by far the one that you use through Deborah was the most appealing to me by a long way. And part of that was the different types through the quiz. So by all means, share that with you, because I think I was fascinated by it. I'm sure my listeners will be too.
So so the way that it works, right, is that we've all got different behaviours and traits around money, and some of them we recognise and some of them we don't. Some of them we don't really understand, and some of them we shy away from because they make us feel fearful or guilty or shameful or whatever. So the way that the money types work, they're a little bit like archetypes. We've got a group of 8 characters, a bunch of 8 characters, fictional characters, who all behave very differently around money. They all have different behaviors and traits around money. And the thing to remember, and this is the really important thing, is that we have all of the money types within us.
Mm-hmm.
So there are no labels here. What we're saying is that you have the capability to display the behaviors and traits of all of the money types. I wouldn't say all at the same time. That would be quite tricky.
Yeah.
And the thing to try and recognize is to work out which of the money types taking center stage in your financial life at given situations.
Yeah.
So what we say is the money types are not who you are, they're where you are. And the 8 money types that we've got the innocent, which is head in the sand, probably financially dependent, probably says they're rubbish with money, puts a brave smile on their face, but actually is pretty anxious inside and just wish it was all would all just go away. And then we've got the victim, who could very well have started off as the innocent, actually, and they've sort of gone out and tried to sort things out, and things haven't really gone their way, and everything bad happens to them, and everybody else gets the luck.
Yeah.
And they tend to live in that story, and, it's all right for everyone else, well, it's all right for them, and all that kind of stuff. So they're the victim, and quite often become a self-fulfilling prophecy, because they say that everything's going to happen, and then it generally does, right? You just said about putting out energy.
Yeah.
And then we've got the warrior, who's the money type of action, which is good because they're going to be confident, probably financially successful, and they're going to be wanting to learn about money, but they also like to motivate others around money, and they're wise and they're loyal, and all that kind of stuff. So we like the warrior. Then we've got the martyr, which is the money type of service. And it's quite exhausting being the martyr, because they're the ones that are always thinking, well, if nobody else does it, I'm just going to have to do it myself. And actually, nobody's going to do it as well as I'm going to do it. So if I do allow them to do it, I'll probably get disappointed and a little bit resentful because it won't be done in the way that I want it to be doing. But in the same breath, I'm very good at giving out and doing things for other people, but I'm not very good at receiving, because all my boundaries are shot to bits. And quite frankly, being a martyr is quite exhausting. So that's the money type of service. Then you've got the fool, who probably lead a roller coaster of a life. One minute they've got money, next minute they haven't got money, always looking for the next deal, probably quite a lot of emotional spending going out there. Yeah. But happy-go-lucky, lives for today, but could definitely do with reining it in a bit and getting a bit of discipline with their spending, etc., and just smoothing it all out. Really, we don't want to get rid of fool completely, but to live life in full mode all the time again is like a bit treacherous, to be honest. A fool and his money are soon parted. There's a good one.
Yeah.
Then we've got the creator artist,
Yeah.
which is, love the creator artist, got some lovely sides to it, the spiritual side, spiritual creative side. But the problem with the creator artist is there's quite often a bit of conflict. So they sort of say, oh, money's not really very important to me, but yet they've always got their eye on their mate's Apple Watch. You know, and they're never sort of thinking, not quite working out where they fit in the world, and sort of thinking, well, you know, I should be very careful. I find quite a lot of Guardian readers to have quite high creator artists. My husband was 100% creator artist when he did the money type quiz, so very detached from money, and I'm not in a good way. So just doesn't sort of want to have anything to do with it. And yet there's still a sort of thought of like, you know, not quite sure where I fit in the world. So that's the creator artist. Then we've got the tyrant, who everything is all about money. Money, 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 money. You can never have enough. You can never be rich enough. People love you because you're rich and wealthy, and you splash the cash sometimes, but then you're very secretive other times, but you can also be controlling, manipulative. That's the energy that I used to carry. It's really most unattractive. And the thing about the tyrant is that underneath it all, they have a fear of being abandoned and a fear of being left alone. So they're actually quite sad underneath it all. And then finally, you've got the money magician, who is the money type of faith, trust, and balance, who will have experienced all of the other money types, but learned that, you know, when innocence stood out for them, that actually all the answers are within, and you don't need to look for everybody else for a magic pill, but you can really sort things out yourself. Victim, just let go of the old story, right? Spit out the old gum that just doesn't taste of anything anymore, and start moving forward. You can have a fantastic story, but you just don't need to live there. As far as the warrior is concerned, they're great friends with the magician. The martyr, look, you can't get anywhere until you've filled your own cup up, right? It's much better to help pull people up rather than get down with them.
Yeah.
Fool, love a bit of fool. It's great, but rein it in. Yeah, just got to get it balanced. A little bit of balance, to just like, because if not, you're going to have a heart attack, right? And then you've got the creator artist, which is great, but just to understand that money is important, because the last time we looked, you have to pay for your mortgage and your electricity and your health and your food and all that kind of stuff, and it all costs money, and there's no shame in wanting a little bit of money. And then as far as the tyrant's concerned, the magician learnt that you don't have to be rich and be a shiny show-off to be loved and be happy. And so everybody wants to be the magician. Everybody wants to have the warrior, because if you have those two at the helm, then you will be driving your life in a very positive way. And we know that saying from Ayn Rand, the writer. She said, money is simply a tool, and it will take you to wherever you wish to go, but it will not replace you as the driver.
Very good. Very, very good.
So those are the money types. And the thing is, once you can identify which of those money types are running your money show, you can then work on changing it, because as Deborah would say, to coin her phrase, when you can name it, you can change it.
Absolutely. First thing with any issue or problem is to identify the problem in the first place, and then
pin it on someone else, right? Pin it on one of them. Pin it on one of the money types and go, oh my victim's been out today, feeling right sorry for myself. I am. Then you can start fixing it. Come on. Get the warrior in, get the magician in. What are you doing sitting in that old story, you silly victim? Come on. Let's move on, shall we? Let's dust ourselves down. We'll start again, and let's see how we could get moving forward.
Out of all the people that you've coached or helped over the years, is there one which tends to, is it a sort of a type that they fall into more often than not, or are they all really different? I'm just wondering how many of the people that you've had are actually magicians when they come to you, if any.
Well, that's a really interesting question. That's a very good question. I would say that, yes, people do come to me with a bit of magician and with a bit of warrior, but they will very likely have a healthy dose of one of the others too.
Which is probably more dominant, but they show signs of the other, should we say, better archetypes.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to remember that it just depends how long you've allowed your warrior and your magician to sleep, really. And if you know how to wake them up. I've been working with a young lady recently who, she only ever describes herself, but she was describing herself as undisciplined, impulsive, etc. And I was going, right, okay, that's cool. And so when we did her money type quiz, she's coming out with tyrant, because she's being self-tyrannical, right? She's absolutely having a go at herself all the time. She's got a nice, healthy victim going on. She's got some warrior too, because she's very good at budgeting. In fact, she's exceptionally good at budgeting. But what happens is at the end of every month, she tends to overspend. And because she's impulsive and undisciplined, her words, not mine.
Yeah.
So we sit down with those two words going through the coaching program. And I said, right, so what we're doing today is we're going to look at some of the negative words that you've got. We call it on their money coaching pattern grid. Mm-hmm. We're going to look at some of the words you've got. And I want you to pick 3 negative words that you would like to just have out of your life. And she picked undisciplined and impulsive. And the last one I think was resentful. So we started going through it and I was going, right, undisciplined. Let's name it. What's going on? She goes, well. Then she went quiet and she goes, actually, I'm not undisciplined, am I? I said, I don't know, are you? Aren't you? And she said, no, I'm not undisciplined at all. And the funny part of it is that for all of her life, and she's not that old, she's only in her 20s, but she's had this vision of herself being undisciplined. But actually, when she thought about it, she wasn't. So she'd been living a false belief. I mean, that's probably one of the clearest examples of a false belief for so long. See, many people will believe things around money, will have this vision of themselves around money, which can be completely untrue.
I'm just wondering sometimes, is it because somebody else has said that to them? You are undisciplined or whatever it is, and then they just believe that in most aspects of their lives.
Absolutely, totally. But on this particular example, it was a case of she was so desperate to not be like somebody else in her life. And part of that was conquering to be wealthy. Yeah, okay. And getting herself into a situation where she was just being a bit like me, right? Getting herself into a situation where she goes, I don't need anybody else in my life. I'm going to do it all by myself. Yeah. And which again is warrior. It's over warrior when you're so defensive that you actually chop people's heads off who are friends, not foes. You know, you go back in just attacking everybody really. But her view of it was that she was setting a budget, but she was blowing it, setting it, blowing it, setting it, blowing it. But she was very disciplined with her budget. But there was just one particular part of her budget that she wasn't, I call it running from a murky pot. Yeah. So she had a certain amount of her money that would go, well, that's the money that I have for these other things. But because she wasn't budgeting that, so it didn't include the trainers or mum's 50th birthday or something like that, she would then have these unexpected expenses come up that would blow the budget. But she didn't know how to do it. Nobody taught her how to do it. And actually, she was doing a brilliant job. Yeah. But she just needed to tell somebody, for somebody to tell her to get rid of the murky pot. Yeah. And once she got rid of that, her whole demeanor changed. But she realized, I'm not undisciplined at all. I've just been almost tricking myself because I didn't have the skills to do what I wanted to do in a full way. But you're right. I mean, what our parents tell us and what our peers tell us as small children, you know, it
sticks, and it does a lot of, it can do a lot of damage and certainly have a negative impact in the way that we see ourselves.
There's 2 sides to that, though, isn't there?
Yes, the other way. You can be positive.
Well, the first thing is that somebody says something to us, and that's one side of it. Yeah. But the other side of it is, how do we receive it?
Of course.
So we have to learn things from 2 ways. We have to go, so what that person told you, was it true? I mean, you know, was it, you know, affected you? My particular one, my mum would just tell me that I was stupid because I do silly things. And then she would ask me to perform and stand up and sing and dance.
Yeah.
And the next minute she'd tell me to sit down, shut up and stop showing off. And that feels like that, that horrible feeling like the headmasters, you just got to wait outside the headmaster's office. But if I look back now, well, when she told me I was stupid, she wasn't. She was embarrassed because I'd done something or broken something in front of somebody else, and it was just her language. And what did her mum tell her? Well, she was never parented. So did she actually mean to say that I was really stupid? No. How did I receive that? Like a dagger to the heart. And that's what I live with. So I have two things to learn here. One, the intention was not what I thought it was. And secondly, there is no dagger in my heart. That's just what it feels like. So that's my healing.
I'm going to go off at a tangent here, because that going through your coaching system, I can see how you could become a better parent if you recognize these things.
Oh, yeah.
And it can make such an impact in terms of children, in terms of feeding them positives, but obviously where they need it. But if you need to correct them in any shape or form, it's done in obviously in the right way, rather than calling somebody stupid or disruptive or whatever it might be. It can be done in the right way, but you understand what you need to say or do to get the best out of your child.
Well, I mean, let's think about it for a minute, right? We're not taught how to parent. We're not taught how to look after our money. We're not really taught very much about relationships. We're supposed to be good at all this kind of stuff. But if you think about, I mean, I have to probably confess up and say did the same to my children. Well, I didn't know about this stuff when I had when the girls were young.
Nobody
you think about those situations, you go, little Johnny's punched little Edward in the face, right, or something, or given him, stabbed him with the biro, or whatever they do. And you go, and you look at it, what did you do, Johnny? Look what you've done. Look what you've done to poor Edward. Now say sorry. Sorry. No, say sorry like you mean it. Sorry. I mean, it's like, oh my God, when you think about that now, the shame that you're planting in that child.
Yeah.
And you can, looking back on those situations, and I do this with clients all the time, is to go back to that time and go, right, let's unpick it for a minute and let's go through it and look at it through a different lens for a minute. And let's see if we can then let it go and actually just let's take the energy out of it. But what we're also going to do is we're going to express it rather than push it down. Because this is the thing that we do. You've got to let it get out. And you think about when you're telling little Johnny off, right, for stabbing Edward with the biro, he is then told, now go and sit down and be quiet and get on with your work, right? That'd be the next thing. So off he goes and sits down, and he's sitting there boiling underneath. He's got all these emotions running around in his chest and in his head and probably all through his body. But he's got to just wait for them to simmer down. I mean, we even say it, don't we? Simmer down. And he's going to push all of those emotions down. I call them sweeping them under the carpet, whatever you like.
Yeah.
And what's then going to happen throughout the rest of his life is he's going to have little situations that are going to come up that are going to trigger that moment again. And he's going to feel those same emotions come up. But again, very likely, he's going to push them back down, put them under the carpet, and it's like planting that seed and just allowing those roots to grow and grow and grow. And eventually, you're going to get to a point where you've shoved it under the carpet so many times. I always say, how many times you shove this under the carpet? It leaves a lump, and you're going to get to a point that whichever way you turn to walk, you're going to trip over something.
Yeah.
You've got to get those lumps out from under the carpet and express them and let them out. And this is why when you get triggered, it's your inner being that's actually asking you to get this out, not push it down. I think
it's like all problems. You can't hide problems. You have to tackle them. Well, hopefully as and when they're arising, and they just get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And they, as you say, you might have happened many, many years ago, and it's that deep-rooted obstacle that you can't get rid of. And you don't know why, as you get older, why that is.
That's right, because you can't see it, and that's part of the training as a money coach. We're trained to look at, patterns, subconscious patterns, and try and make some sense out of things. And that's why, again, it's really good using the money types, because if you can externalize it, it just helps you to take that kind of objective view to move you through to coming out the other side, to coming out to learning how to wake up your warrior and magician. And that's when it's great. And when you do that with couples as well, because I work with couples, that's really very, very rewarding.
I think, obviously, I've looked at obviously the variations in terms of the types of individuals, groups, and obviously the business people that you help as well. But I think when you come to couples or business partners, they've all got different relationships with money. And one, I think, is fantastic that, first of all, they need to identify what archetypes they are, and also how those different archetypes work together to get the best outcome.
Yeah. So, but before that, though, what we need to do is we need to look at, because the first job we do as a money coach is look at our money story. We have to go back to the story.
And what does that actually mean, though? What does that entail?
So what that means is that the client will basically write their money story. And it sounds like a bit of a daunting task. It's not. And I have to say that every single client I've ever worked with has really enjoyed doing it. And it's a wonderful document where it doesn't have to be written in a way that, we're not writing a novel or anything like this. It's just noting down little bits of just thoughts and emotions and feelings and just roughly what happened. And I focus on the younger years.
Yeah.
Because the older years, you basically just see rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat generally. So we start off with the money story to just work out what messages you had, what kind of environment you were in. I mean, there was a study by UNICEF in 2014 where they got all sorts of scientists and psychopaths, that's not the way, psychiatrists, etc., all these clever people together, and they did these tests, and they worked out that yes, you very much do inherit stuff from your parents, and yes, the environment that you grow up in totally affects how you are. And I know this for a fact, right, because my dad left when I was 1, Mr. Perfectly Adequate, by the way. He left when I was 1, and I didn't really get to know him again until I was about 18. Okay. And we are so similar. I'm not going to say I'm perfectly adequate. I'm not going to mention that. But anyway, we are so similar when it comes to money. Really, really fascinating. And I'd never really met him. So I know that to be true. But we have to look at the money stories, because when two people get together, what they don't do is they don't go, so what are your intentions towards me, James? And you go, well, I think you're rather nice. Maybe we should spend some time together. Yes, but first of all, let's go through our money stories and what your goals and dreams are financially. We just don't do that, do we?
Yeah. No.
So going through our money stories as an individual is good. Doing it as a couple, life-changing. And bear in mind that I call myself a money coach, but I'll be honest with you, by the time we've had session 1, most of the problems or the things that come up, money is just a symptom. It's not a problem.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
I mean, money, how can money have that much power?
Yeah, well, again, in my role, it's slightly different in as much that it's not about the money itself. It's about what money can help you do in life. And it's all about choices and freedom. If you make the right choices, it'll give you the freedom to live a life that you want. So
about making the right money decisions, and actually how to go through that thought process, and actually how to get from A to B without stress and struggle and fear and anxiety and guilt and shame.
Have you got I'd be interested to know or hear if you've got any, obviously not name any names, any example where somebody was in a pretty bad shape when they come to you in terms of that relationship with money, and then after the end of the sort of coaching they've had with you, what it meant to them when they come out the other end, if you like. Or have you got, you probably got lots, but
Yeah, I have got lots. It's interesting because I think 9 times out of 10 that the journey that people think they're going to go on ends up being a completely different journey. I mean, I had a lovely couple who have written a review on my LinkedIn. I've got some who came to me, and both good earners, but constantly overspending, constantly battling with debt and spending and this and that and that and that. And it was, and the thing was that when they loved each other dearly, but when they started talking about money, he sort of took on the powerful thing bit, and she would sort of hold her ground for a minute, and then she'd sort of shrink off into the background, and the conversation would just get left, and the whole problem would be pushed into the corner. And next month would go, and the next month would go, and the next month. And it was just a recurring problem over and over and over again. So they both decided to sign up with me. And he was going, oh, this is great. I know that when I take the money type quiz, I'm going to be magician, right? And he came out, and she actually had almost active magician, and his magician was 0. He was devastated. Anyway, he was a very heart-centered man. And I have to say that most of the men that I do work with start off by being quite heart-centered. So open to sort of, I'm not going to go woo-woo stuff, but open to sort of open mind, emotional, a bit high up on the emotional intelligence stakes and all that kind of stuff. And we just worked through it, and by doing the money map, doing the practical, going through the money stories, and both of them, I mean, that's such a moving session when we go through the money stories. Yeah. And then we do it, one of them reads it and the other one sits there quietly just listening. And it's like, it's very rare that we don't use the box of tissues. And it's what's so fascinating about it is that the partner can suddenly see a completely different side to the person that they've been married to for such a long time. And they go, now I see why you do this, or why I trigger you when I say this. And it's just a whole part of different understanding. And when we have a quote for money coaching, which Deborah introduced us to, the money for couples. Yeah. And it's a Rumi quote, and it says, out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Okay. So it's about working with 2 people who are in a partnership, money partnership, love partnership, life partnership. And it's not about going, well, you need to be a bit more like them, well, you need to be a bit more like you. It's taking both of them to a completely new place. Yeah.
That sounds incredible. Do you get couples, do you get reluctant couples, or one of them is reluctant and doesn't really buy into it, or are you able to, should we say, convince or get them into it throughout the process?
Well, to be honest, when couples usually call me, they'll probably go, we don't want to speak to a financial advisor, we're not ready for that. We need some advice about where we've got our savings and what we're doing with this, that and the other. It's usually very much on the practical side. Okay. And I'll then enter into have a consultation with them, and I'll start talking to them. And you just through the conversation, etc., you suddenly realize, I know, but I'm putting across them and saying, look, you want me to help you to organize your money on a practical level. Yeah. I can sit down with you and go through spreadsheets, use whatever method you want to get you so that you're managing your money. But I'd like to say that the chances of it working long term are very slim, because the thing is, if you really wanted to manage your money, you would have done it by now. Yeah. And the thing that's stopping you from managing your money is your mindset, not your ability. You're extremely clever people. You're highly qualified. So I can teach you how to do that, but that isn't what's stopping you do it. Yeah, so then we start moving into the realms of, so why are we how we are when it comes to money? Yeah. Why is this like this? Why is there a conflict between you, perhaps, where you're not you know, she wants to spend and you don't. You know, for her, if to go and buy something is like taking a gnat off an elephant's backside. For him, she's broached the walls of the Aladdin's cave, you know, whoop, and it, you know, there's I'm not necessarily saying that's the same thing with a him and a her, but this is what happens, and it happens over a period of time. It doesn't just start like this. It just, you know, it just develops over time. You know, it might even develop as their wealth grows. You know, as their wealth grows, their mindset shifts, or if somebody's money is diminishing, or if somebody loses their job, all of a sudden the mindset changes. The number of people who have just had this massive identity shift. You know, they've been working in the corporate job for say 20 odd years, and all of a sudden they've been made redundant. They've never had to think about it. What housewife's been doing, you know, the lady at home has been running the budget and looking after the family and the kids and all this kind of stuff. He's been going off commuting. I know it sounds very old-fashioned, but I'm just using it as an example. And all of a sudden she's running the budget and going, well, hang on a minute, go out to work. And he's sitting there and he's going, oh my God, I've lost my job and I've been so comfortable in that job. It's just been like going to my other home for all this time. What am I going to do now? I don't feel, you know, and it's difficult.
Well, I think we've all, when we're in the corporate world, we've got our home family and we've got our work family. And I think that, you know, when one or the other isn't there anymore, it has a huge impact in terms of the way that we feel and think about ourselves, and also the way that we live. So I got a couple of interesting sort of changes I've seen over the last 10 months or so, is where part of what I do is a retirement specialist in terms of financial planning. And I've seen it, the two sides of the coin. People, because they've experienced lockdown and they've been at home, there's two outcomes I'm seeing at the moment. One is love being at home, don't want to go back to the corporate world. I want to make my life so I'm more at home, working from home, spending more time with the family, etc. And then you go to the other side of the coin, they don't like it, or they can't stand it and they want to be back out there. So what it means for me is some they like the idea of being more at home, and perhaps they'll bring their retirement years forward. And then I never want to retire. If that's what retirement means, don't want it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's so many situations.
Yeah.
So many situations. I try to be, you know, provide services for everybody across the board.
So what I mean, across the board, in terms of across the board, so who can you help in terms of the services that you provide?
Okay, so obviously I've got one-to-one coaching.
Yeah.
So it's usually a 3 to 6 month coaching package.
Yeah.
You know, it's an investing in yourself, and it's quite hefty work, right? I've also got my couples coaching package, which is the sort of gold level service. And then I've also got a really lovely online course called Loving Me, Loving My Money, which is for a small group of people to work together, to work through our mindset and actually gain practical skills in money management.
Yeah.
I've got something new coming up, which I did want to talk about, which is I'm doing a sort of big experiment, and it's like a money mission program from sort of crisis to becoming mastering your money. I haven't even got the title yet, but I'm going to be running a program for 100 people who have had their income and their confidence knocked because of COVID. I don't know if you know the story of Apollo 13, but it was back in 1967. They were going to the moon and they nearly got there, and then they had an explosion on board, and all they had to take, it was like, oh my God, it's all gone wrong, help, what are we going to do? And actually the mission changed from going to the moon to just let's just get them home, let's get them safe. Yeah. But what was interesting within that, what they had to do is they had to completely take stock of where they were, work together, work openly, really had to sort out their emotions and stay calm and all that kind of stuff, and worked their way back home. They got back home, and then they found out they were actually in a faulty spaceship in the first place. So I sort of looked at that film and thought, God, that's just so like people's finances. You know, they were on the road to work, everything was going fine, they were sort of running their money life, you know, everything was sort of going okay. And then something like COVID comes along and it's like, boom, smack to the head. But actually, when you look back at it, were you managing your money in an effective way in the first place? So, and also, were you really dealing with your mindset and all that kind of stuff? Yeah. So I'm running this program, 100 people 10-week program, videos to watch. But the pièce de résistance is that we have a weekly Zoom call where we all talk, chat, etc. And there's also a WhatsApp group where they can all chat. And I know it works because I've run the small community of Loving Me, Loving My Money, but I've also been in WhatsApp groups of say 85, 90 people where we're all supporting each other, and it's great. So I'm going to do it for 100 people, and I'm going to charge each person £100.
And when are you looking to launch this?
I'm going to launch it on, funnily enough, I'm going to launch it on April the 11th. Apollo 13 took off.
Fantastic.
So if anybody's interested in that, let me know. I also deliver workshops. So I deliver workshops to long-term unemployed and people with minor mental health issues.
Yeah.
Love doing that. I've got a lot of out-of-the-box workshops that I can deliver. Yeah, I mean, I've got a little mini couples money boot camp, which is just a do-it-yourself couples course, which is obviously for somebody who can't invest in the couples, the one-to-one.
Yeah, well, I think with most of these services, it's to have a range of services that suits all people and all budgets at the end of the day. And it could be that, as people progress and, they may want to then go on to the next one. But it's nice to be able to, should we say, taste something first without a huge commitment and then go on to the next one.
Yeah, but really, financial education should be for everybody. So the first step is if somebody needs help, just pick up the phone and have a chat with me. That's it. We see where we go from that.
All right. And how would they contact you if they want to get in touch with you?
With a name like mine, I'm not that difficult to find. So if you Google Fanny Snaith, you will see that I've got my website, which is www.fannysnaith.com. I have my private Facebook group, which if you feel like you'd like to join that, is called Loving Me, Loving My Money. And I've got the Fanny Snaith Certified Money Coach page. I'm on Instagram. I've got Twitter. I've got a YouTube channel, which would be fantastic for you to subscribe to. Yeah, on LinkedIn, I'm everywhere.
I shall put up your links on the show notes. The message is that you can be found on virtually most social media platforms.
Yeah.
Last question to finish off, which is my favorite question I ask all my guests.
Yeah.
And the question is, what does wealth mean to you?
Feeling fulfilled.
I can't think of a better answer. Thank you, Fanny.
There you go. That's it.
So, really grateful for you to spend time today. So, thank you for sharing your story. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm sure my listeners will as well. And I'd like to wish you the best of luck with everything that you do.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And I really appreciate you asking me on here. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. You can find links to everything that we've discussed in the show notes. And if you'd like to know more about what I do or see more great money tips to build a secure and a happy lifestyle, then you can find all of these on my website, ttwealth.co.uk, or my YouTube channel, TT Wealth. If you want to work with me, then why not book a free 30-minute call to find out how. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I also produce a bi-monthly newsletter, TT Wealth News, which contains practical money tips that is free for you to download from my website. And if you're enjoying this podcast, don't hesitate to leave a review. Of course, the more stars the better, and equally, sharing is caring. So if you've heard something that you've enjoyed and you think will benefit someone you know, then please do share with them. I'm sure they will appreciate it. So it's goodbye until next time, and remember, live for today, invest for tomorrow.